Hi, this is Corey Stack here, just continuing there on the podcast. Politics and More is being prepared by Miss Maureen Kennedy, and she's very forensic about everything. She's very careful, so she's still working on it. We were thinking it was so she's working diligently on it because she's extremely an extreme perfectionist, and she wants to check everything. She's extremely careful. Great person to work with, brilliant. So it's great to have these people who are perfectionists, and they're engineers and lawyer, legal people, and different brilliant backgrounds, brilliant, brilliantly forensic. So they're like detectives. So great to have, when you want to investigate anything, and if you're kind of, as I've been described as Inspector Clouseau myself. So it's nice to have somebody of equal caliber, or different, maybe different strengths and talents, so we complement each other. Great. So let's talk about this now, because I'm always very concerned with access to justice and abuse of authority and abuse dynamics. So I do a lot of work on this currently, looking at employment law and blind spots in EU employment law, in terms of where coercive control stands in the protective disclosures regime and in terms of employment law. And there's a huge blind spot there. So there's it's I suppose, being a mathematician, you understand continuous systems, and you can kind of compare it to discrete time systems, and where this is hugely problematic in terms of employment law and protective disclosures regimes. Um, Sadly, right throughout EU law as well. So we're just looking at this at the moment. Forget about that for the moment, anyway. This is just, I'm interested in all these blind spots. It's the more you look, the more you see. So it all kind of gathers momentum over time. So over time, that's the important thing. It's the time dimension. But lawyers don't really understand the time dimension versus the discrete time dimension, and we can't blame them for not being, forensically trained in mathematics. So I mean, it's sad, really, in one respect, for the victims of these blind spots, and it's not a blame game. It's just the mathematics, against the legal people, and it's not a game. It's just, I suppose, it's the knowledge, the disciplinary, the discipline in both cases of what mathematics, the power of mathematics, which has been undermined big time worldwide. We're useless. We have no value. We're waiting to see the papers I've got now in terms of blind spots and EU employment law and in the protective disclosures regime. Now, this isn't anything critical, of course, but it's just, I suppose, it's just the difference in disciplines and the difference in that sort of thing. So we'll leave that aside now for the time being, but it's major. So why people are talking about a police state by stealth. A police state does not arrive overnight. As we said, it happens gradually when surveillance powers expand, when oversight is weak, when laws are passed quietly, and when media discussion is limited. The law did not come with a major public information campaign. That's very regrettable, because we'd imagine the media would be to inform the public about these sort of major changes in public policy, particularly in police policy in this regard. There seems to be a remarkable silence around it. So this is why I'm doing this video, having heard Mr. Wilson's major concerns, and he's a person of exceptional integrity. So many people are only hearing about it because individuals spoke up. This is not healthy in a democracy. So credit where credit is due. Former Garda and whistleblower John Wilson kind of corrected it. Was Mr. John Wilson's son that passed away recently. Mr. John Wilson, the Thornage has passed away many years ago, and it was his son, who's the first cousin of John Wilson, has publicly raised serious concerns about this law. And this is in the No Risk No Reward platform that he was on just a couple of nights ago. Somebody sent me the video, and sure, it was I was gobsmacked, really, because of the lack of information that's been, it's been kind of, I want it's been withheld from the public, but there's certainly an absence of critical of critical, very, very important critical analysis of this new legislation. It's and a lot of this can pass in the middle of the night, and when people aren't around, and the people don't know the facts, and then the legislation is passed and people can do nothing. Whenever you think of individuals, it's absolutely critical that people are willing to raise alarms when laws affect basic civil liberties. Silence is how overreach becomes normal. What can ordinary citizens do? Now, most people say to me, Cora, I'm powerless. I can do nothing. I see all this alleged corruption, all this wrongdoing. What can I do as an ordinary citizen? There's nothing I can do, Cora. There's nothing. Well, there is. There is. So let me give you what any ordinary citizen can do, that are saying they're powerless, they're powerless. All the people who spoiled their votes are saying they're powerless, but they weren't. They went out and they spoiled their vote. So the Spoil the Vote campaign and the people who stayed at home are all saying they're powerless, they're powerless. No, they're not. This is what can be done, and it's perfectly legal and legitimate, provided people are genuinely concerned. This is not a coercive channel. So here is what people can do if you are concerned, as I would do. Write to your local TDs. You can contact your local TDs or your councillors and ask why this law is being introduced, or your senators. They're the people making the law that have the authority to write to your local TDs or your local senators. Ask why this law is being introduced, what safeguards exist, and whether they support expanded Garda access to personal devices. Do this while the bill is still being debated, which is now. So do this week. Just write an email to your local senator or your local TD. Don't be in any way abusive. Just write it very factually. Senators review legislation and can raise concerns publicly. That's one of the powers of senators. So I'll do it myself, to a few, senators that sometimes I write to, they know who they are. A sharp, polite, factual email matters more than people realise. Again, we don't have to abuse them or be abusive in any way. Avoid any abusive language, because you can state your point without using abusive language. And in fact, if you avoid using emotive language but state it very clearly, that's more powerful. And a lot of us have had to learn that over the years, that you can still raise your language with passion and with a lot of passion, but you don't have to be personally insulting to a person. That's the problem. People can be very sarcastic and rude and dismissive and mocking and all of that, and it's terrible to watch it and how they get away with it. So write to the President at the right time. Now, when is the right time? If you understand the Constitution, the President of Ireland, the current President of Ireland, can refer a bill to the Supreme Court after it passes the Oireachtas before it's signed into law. Now, I have major concerns why the amended Protected Disclosures Act of 2022, which is one of the most regressive acts in the history of the state, was not referred to the Supreme Court for its deliberations and considerations. There is no evidence that it was that. I have major concerns because it was such a regressive act.